All right, so if I haven't already welcomed you, welcome back and happy Valentine's Day. Hopefully someone has shown you a little bit of affection, even if it's you showing yourself some affection. That's important too. Well, I show you affection. Oh, and looks like Robin has a bear. Yes, yes. You can put the bear up to the screen if need be, and the bear can also give Zoom kisses. Okay, excellent. Great. Now we've all been greeted. What I'm going to do is put in the chat the plan for today. In case you haven't been keeping track week by week, this is actually our second to the last session. And tonight's focus will be articulation / enunciation. So then let me cut and paste that so that you have it. Welcome, Zell. Welcome back. Happy Valentine's Day to anyone I haven't greeted yet. Okay. So as you'll see in the chat, if you can access it, the plan for tonight is to do a warm-up in a couple of minutes. Then the presentation, that's what I was referring to around articulation / enunciation. Then we'll do as we've done in some previous sessions, we'll take some time for partner practice. And that's where you can practice either the articulation that we're about to talk about or aspects from previous sessions. And then that last half hour is the opportunity for you to share speeches, practice remarks as it were, with the larger group. And then if there's time to ask me any questions. My thinking for the final session is a series of one-on-ones. I'll say to keep them within the parameters of the session. The one-on-ones are relatively brief, so they're about 10 minutes. So that would be great if you wanted to come to the one-on-ones. And the one-on-ones are time for anything. You can tell me what you liked or didn't like about the class. We can do a particular exercise together, either from one of the YouTube videos I sent or something that we did in class that you wanted extra clarification on, questions about next steps. It's really whatever you would like it to be for. Yeah, and so that will be the final session is actually those mini sessions. And then if you have additional questions or thoughts, we can communicate via email, but that's my thinking. Okay. I should also tell you, in the meantime, I will also upload to YouTube the recordings of all of these sessions, and I think I'll have them as unlisted links. So just maybe if you want to star the email in your system so that you'll have it as long as YouTube exists to access, to revisit anything we've done in class. Yeah. Okay. So here we are, right at 4:05, according to my laptop computer. So if you would, folks, we will stand up and do some of the gentle stretches that we've done in previous weeks. Welcome, Barry. Perfect timing. We're just about to start our brief, gentle warm-up. Some folks feel more comfortable or for technological reasons have their cameras off during the warm-up. That's fine. If that makes you more comfortable, as long as you're back on once we get into the lecture / presentation. Yeah? All right. So as we've done in previous sessions, if you would take the first minute or two for whatever stretch you would like for yourself. So the first several stretches are speaker's choice. So if you need shoulder rolls, if you know you ran or walked today and you need to do some leg stretches, again, one of our first points of awareness as speakers are what we need to do what we need to do in a given moment. So speaker's choice, and I'll do some of my own. So I'll alert you when we'll come back to the group. But again, begin with the stretches that you need right now. And the one note I'll give you is if you're someone who tends to stop breathing or have shallow breathing when you're concentrating, if you notice that, then remind yourself to begin breathing fully again. And at least 1 more minute, speakers, on your stretches. Thank you. And now, if you would come back to standing, what we would call actors neutral, really just with your head at the top of your spine, hands at your sides. Legs can be, you certainly don't need to make sure your legs don't need to be tensed into absolute straightness. You also can feel free to bob your knees, bend them as you need to if you tend to lock them. So if you would, now to begin our warm-up, we'll do as we've done working from head to toe. Begin by gently shaking your head as though you were saying no. And as always, this is speaker's choice for how far your head goes from one side to the other, contingent on what you've done today. Some folks have been at work or spent time with family, done fitness activities. So however your head, neck, and shoulders are feeling. And then gently shaking your head yes. Again, speaker's choice, how far forward and how far back your head is going. Reminding yourself to breathe as need be. And then we'll do a couple of head rolls. Pick your direction, just knowing that you'll go in the opposite direction the next time. I'll count out 16 as I've done before. So by 4, your ears near one shoulder, 8 looking at the ceiling, 12 near the other shoulder, and 16 back at the starting point, which is head bowed. So let's begin, speakers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Please reverse direction. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. Great. Thank you. Now, if you would begin shoulder rolls, speaker's choice. Let's go into the back, but if you'd like to do shoulder by shoulder, you can. If you'd like to do 2 shoulders at a time, you may do that as well. Also, the size of the circle is speaker's choice. So from a small circle to one that gets your elbows into the action to make that circle wider, speaker's choice for what you need. And then reverse direction. So if you started forwards, go backwards. Yes. Or vice versa, speaker's choice. I've been watching YouTube fitness videos, and it's very human to watch the instructor get confused about what they've said or which direction they're going or what the count is. Like, oh, that's human. All right. And now, folks, we're now moving down to the torso. I can't see myself. Great. Making sure you can see me. So leading from our belly button as we've done before. So this is with the arms flapping along for the ride, a gentle spinal twist. And feel free to pick up your feet so that your knees aren't doing anything strained. And let that go. Now we'll do a series of hula hoops. Yes, or hula dance. We need our friend in Hawaii to show us that. Big circles, or as large as is comfortable for you today. And reversing direction. And this is a very quick and dirty, I acknowledge. And then just generally shaking out the legs and the feet and getting the hands in the action too. Great. All right. I always acknowledge the strangeness of having you warm up and then sitting down again. So feel free to stay standing as long as you like. But if you're ready to sit down, you can do that as well. And now I'll sort of get into the core of our content today with articulation/enunciation. So give me one moment and I'll share my screen. Okay. Chris, you're the person I happen to be able to see. Could I get a thumbs up if you can see the PowerPoint? Great. Thank you. So before we get into that, I want to again acknowledge that last week we did a lot and spent quite a bit of time practicing. But for folks who might have missed the unit on pitch, I wanted to tell you and refresh for the others some of the pitch tools that we explored. Again, you'll have access to that entire recording, and I can also send you PDFs for those folks who are visual learners or like the text of things. So pitch and inflection, we explored operative words, that is the emphasized word in a sentence, and how emphasizing individual words in a sentence can change the context or the subtext, the meaning underneath the sentence. We talked about using inflection to compare and contrast, that is using upward and downward inflections to distinguish two ideas. We talked about using inflection for a list, a build, which is a special type of list which ascends in momentum. We talked about finishing remarks on a low note of authority so that people know you are finished, as an example. And we didn't talk too much about pitch, change, and gesture. We did look at Suze Orman and Morgan Freeman and how they used gesture as well as pitch. So again, very quick and dirty, but it's been a week, so I wanted to remind you, week or two, so I wanted to remind you of those. Okay, now tonight or this afternoon, we're getting into articulation. I also say enunciation, and I wanted to give you some vocabulary. Unfortunately, for students, for newer speakers, newly aware speakers, there are several sets of, three words which are used interchangeably, but I wanted to just quickly bring to your attention the slight differences between them. So articulation is the physical process of forming speech. Yeah? So that's what your body is doing. If I asked you to say the alphabet right now without making sound, or if I said the alphabet silently, what I would be doing or you would be doing is articulating. So if you were to begin saying, the physical movement that you're seeing or that you're feeling, your lips, your tongue, your teeth, etc., your jaw, that is articulation or articulating. That's the physical process of speech, yeah? Now then there's enunciation, and this is what is of importance to speakers. That's speaking clearly and concisely. And as I say here, the word diction is often used interchangeably. And then there's the issue of pronunciation, the act of saying a word or sound correctly. So if you're learning a language, or if you're learning some slang or whatever, at some point, you'll be listening to people who speak whatever the word or the language, etc., and they'll be checking you to make sure you say it correctly. So different, but quite similar. But stick with me, or if people ask you, are you using good diction? Could you enunciate? Could you use clear articulation? More or less about the same thing. It's about making sure that you can be clearly understood. Yeah. Okay, let me go to my next slide. You see I've changed my numbering. We're in session 5. Why is this important? In everyday speech, you see my 2 images there. People tend not to take a high level of care to be clear, for their speech to be clear, but that's usually because the topics or the listeners, the audience, are familiar. So if you're talking, as you see in the first photo, you're talking with a coworker and you're both talking about the quarterly reports, you both know the quarterly reports, you know each other, you know the topic, etc. But if you're speaking to an audience and you see the second slide with the speaker, let's say there's some sort of conference, there you might need to take more care to make sure that you're understood. Or if you all listened to or watched any of the impeachment hearings, that was an occasion where people took some care and some energy to be understood and to make their language clear because the stakes were high. All right, so segueing, when is it most important? Again, these are things that you as speakers probably do naturally, but we're becoming newly aware of them. So when is enunciation most important? When you're saying long, that is multi-syllable words. When you're saying words that might be new or unfamiliar to your audience. When saying words or sounds that are difficult for you for whatever reason. When your voice is compromised by illness or injury. A brief note about that. I've gotten laryngitis several times in my life, unfortunately, and had to perform in a number of cases, even though my voice was compromised. Your listeners are always trying to understand communication. So if you don't have the volume, if your voice is compromised in some way, if you increase your enunciation, it may make up for any sort of loss of volume that you might be feeling, again, due to illness or injury. Enunciation is also important at the ends of words and for emphasis. So we've got all those pitch, that whole list of pitch and inflection uses that were in part about emphasis. We can enunciate for emphasis as well. Okay, what else do I want to say? Yes, a couple of things to keep in mind. We want efficiency. So I'm not, I'll give you a demonstration. I will not be encouraging you to speak like this unless we are doing an exercise or we're being silly. We want to feel like we're dancing, not weightlifting. Again, we want to be understood. That's the clarity. We want to stay connected to our breath, so we're always breathing. Ideally, we're not enunciating with tension, so our jaw and muscles are as free as possible. Also here, if you have trouble with a particular sound or word, then you'll need to pronounce it in small sections. I'll give you an example I may have mentioned before. I was born and raised in Washington, D.C. I've been various places, but spent most of my life here, actually. But before graduate school, I didn't say, there are words that end with CTS, that is plural words. So if you study a subject in school, then one or two or more subjects are subjects. But until I got to graduate school, I never said CTS, those three sounds together. I would say like an X at the end, so it would be subjects. And then one of my professors was like, my voice and speech professor was like, well, actually, if you're being very formal, you would say subjects. So I had to go around saying kt, kt, kt. And it's still a sound that's difficult for me because I didn't learn it until I was in my 30s. So if you ever have trouble for whatever reason with a particular sound or word, well, it's literally that you're training your body. In this case, the muscles in your mouth and jaw area to do a skill, and you practice it like you would any other skill. You practice it in small sections until it becomes easier. Then my last bullet point there. Ideally, if you're enunciating, you would finish a word, every word, especially the words that are important, I should say, clearly and cleanly. This example is also from my voice and speech professor. When we started our unit on enunciation, she said, welcome to this unit. And then she said, row, 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 row. And we sort of all looked at her curiously like, okay, that's very interesting. What is that? And then she said, robe, road, rogue, roll, roam, rose, wrote, rove. And you see the consonants that I've put there underneath sort of as the ends to the various words. Her point was, if we're concentrating on enunciating, it's usually the ends of words that will tend to fall off. So if there's a word that's particularly important that we want to pay attention to completing the word. All right, a couple more things, and then we'll get into this is the information, then we'll get into the application. So wanted to remind you, as I said before, in our previous work, which is kind of the voice section, there's a lot more of the body involved. You see that picture on the left, that illustration? That's about the diaphragm and breathing, but you could see the spine. We've talked about the spine in our work together. We've talked about diaphragm and lungs, the chest involved in breathing. So all of that happens, pretty much in our entire upper body. But when we're talking about articulation or enunciation, it's a much smaller area. So if you see this illustration on the right, it's really the lips, the jaw, that big old muscle right there, that's the tongue going all the way back. But it's still a much smaller area than the whole upper portion of the body. Okay, and now, after our very brief physical warm-up, I'll give you a little bit of articulation warm-up, and this can be done seated. All right. Like I say here, like athletes, public speakers often limber up their voices and muscles around their mouths before giving speeches, especially if they're words or sounds that are going to cause them, a little bit of a challenge. I'll give you a heads up now. Be prepared to make funny faces. I may have referenced The King's Speech, the movie with Colin Firth from maybe almost a decade ago now, but he makes lots of the sort of funny exercises that we do to this day. So there you see our athlete on the left-hand side and then our speaker on the right. Whoops. Okay. All right, so folks, as you see, if you would begin by gently massaging your face. And if you would like, if you would prefer not to have your funny face on the recording, you could turn your screen off, turn off your camera. Otherwise, welcome to the funny face, the many funny faces. Now I'll ask you, as you see our second person pouting, boy band guy, I'll ask you to stretch your mouth wide and then pout. Or if you'd like to do it with sound, you can imagine saying EU, 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 or stretching it and pouting. If you prefer to do it without sound, that would be a stretch and a pout, or EU, 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 EU. I should say, if any of these are uncomfortable, or if your face starts to vibrate or feel sore, it may be because you're not used to doing these exact exercises. So whenever that happens, you can feel free to pause or to blow out your lips or blow out your tongue to kind of relax anything that's getting tight. Okay, a few more. Oh yes, here we go. Speaking of blowing out your lips, if you would please blow out your lips, making a motorcycle-like sound. Excuse me. Great. And now we'll do that second set of exercises for the lips, which is actually lips and tongue, with tongue twisters. There are pages and pages of them on the internet. These are a selection. I think the next slide has additional ones. If there are particular sounds that give you trouble for whatever reason, then if you wanted to in your warm-up, you could concentrate on those particular sounds. So it would be me saying kts over and over again, for example. All right, but let's give these a try, and we'll do them each 5 or 6 times so we kind of get the flavor of them, or the dance of them, going back to one of our previous slides. So let's begin. Unique New York, unique New York, unique New York, unique New York, unique New York. Let's do the second one. 3 free throws. 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 I'm in there and in the struggle with you. And ideally, if these became our favorite ones, then we would build up with speed. But you know, no worries. We're stepping through them at our beginning phases, that is. Okay, the next one, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather, red leather, yellow leather. The next one is a proper copper coffee pot, 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 a proper copper coffee pot. Next one, toy boat, 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 boat, toy 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 boat. Can you see I'm going with accessible today? Chris is like, she's just doing okay. All right, next one. A shapeless sash sags slowly. 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 I'll give you a few more. Let me see where we're. Great. And let me make these a little bit bigger. Just gonna move you over for now. Okay. We'll kind of go every other one since we've done the ones on the previous slide. Actually, let's do the third one. This is a favorite one of mine, actually one that I struggle with. Danish wristwatch, Irish wristwatch. 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 Oh, we got a chat. Yes, I'll be happy to share these in print, for sure. There was a question in the chat about sharing them. Most definitely. Yes, I'll share these. Yes, I'll share them in the session summary. Great question. Let's do a few more. Let's do, well, actually, we'll do a presidential one. So going down to Nuclear Regulatory Commission, you see that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Former President George W. Bush, I think he used to say nuclear or something similar to that with his Texas accent. So anyway, in the spirit of presidents, I guess, we'll give that one a go. Nuclear Regulatory Commission, 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 Nuclear Regulatory Commission. And we'll actually finish this section with another presidential one I found somewhere. The one that begins with Obama. As I recall in photos, his abdominals were pretty good, but we'll give this a go, all for the sake of tongue twisters. Obama's abominable abdominals. Obama's abominable abdominals. Obama's abominable abdominals. Obama's abominable abdominals. Great. So to kind of re-summarize from the top, articulation is the physical process of forming speech. So again, if you were to silently say, that is without sound, to mouth, or to say that last tongue twister, Obama's abominable abdominals, if you were to say it silently, that sort of flapping that you're hearing your lips make as you form the sounds, that physical process is what we mean by articulation. And then enunciation, similar term, is making our speech clear so that it can be understood. Okay. Okay. Let me shrink this a little bit. And now we'll get into the sort of, so you've got articulation and enunciation as an idea. Now we're getting into the tools, the sort of the use of it. Okay, as the slide says, one way speakers use enunciation to create dynamic speeches is emphasizing important sounds and words. And as the title of this slide says, one way is to stretch out vowel sounds. I don't want to get too far into the weeds of language, but in spoken English, there are there are pure vowel sounds. They're what we would call diphthongs, and then there are triphthongs. What's more important than the type of vowel is the examples for practice. So a word like lose or bead, that's what we would call a pure vowel sound, because we could say that unless we put on that last, the S in lose or the D in bead, we could say lose. We could say that forever as long as we had breath, or we could say the B in bead. We could say that, until we put the end to the word. Other words with vowel sounds are a little bit more complicated. So those we're calling diphthongs. It's where there are two vowel sounds. So, and I should also say how you pronounce these words will depend on your the accent of English that you speak, that the people around you spoke, where you first learned English, etc. So if you don't pronounce your words exactly like these, then it won't apply to you. But if it does, for your use. So for example, there are words like ear and pay actually have two vowel sounds. Pay, pay, again, for some of us, depending on our accent, or ear, the e in ear and the a in pay. Some words, again, depending on our accent, can have three vowel sounds. Words like fire can have an ah, an e, and an fire, or hour. But again, dependent on accent. Some people, instead of saying fire, would say far. Or some people, instead of saying hour, often say are. So again, some variety depending on the accent. But inevitably, there will be some vowels that you can stretch out. So let's practice an example. This is, again, I didn't realize, I'd forgotten that this was so presidential. But to give you an example of stretching out vowel sounds, as the slide says, speak the following passage and elongate the vowel sounds in bold. We'll do this, let's say, actually in the interest of time, let's do this together as a group. And then if you like, in your partner practice, you can experiment in your own remarks. All right. So again, whenever we get to a bolded word, we'll elongate it. This is preeminently the time to speak the truth, the whole truth, frankly and boldly. Nor need we shrink from honestly facing conditions in our country today. This great nation will endure, as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. Some of you may be familiar with that. As it happens, Franklin Roosevelt's particular, I think he had a New York accent. He didn't use lots of R's at the end of his words, so it would be, I think it's fear. He would say fear instead of fear. But anyway, if there's time at the end of class, I actually have a snippet of him saying the speech, so you can hear it in action. All right, so we've got all that theory, all that content. You're like, yeah, that's interesting. But for you as a speaker, one way you can use enunciation is to stretch out your vowel sounds. The other way you can do it is to take, or another, not the only other way, is to take advantage of short words that you get to. So here are some examples. So we had elongating vowels for emphasis. Then we can also use short vowels in short words for emphasis. So I give you these examples to practice, and we can practice them together. Plop, plonk, click, splash, blog, bang, pop or jab, gag, grab, go, or don't. So it's not only the elongated word, but it's also the short word that can give us a certain, if elongating gives us a certain, I don't know, power or grandeur, then we sort of got intensity, we've got energy with these short words. Because going back to our pitch work from previous sessions, variety is the spice of life. So our remarks are interesting to people when there's variety of pitch, but also when there's variety to the difference between elongating words and then shortening them. So then I give you the Franklin Delano Roosevelt speech again, this time really enjoying those short words with short consonants and short vowels. And hopefully you can see my bold here. So just in case you can't, it's the first word, this, then the word shrink, then the word first, and firm. Yeah, and that's almost like we're sort of popping them out, like snapping our fingers. Okay, let's take a go at this. This is preeminently the time to speak the truth, the whole truth, frankly and boldly. Nor need we shrink from honestly facing conditions in our country today. This great nation will endure as it has endured, will revive and will prosper. So first of all, let me assert my firm belief that the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. So if you find some short words in your remarks, whether you have poetry or speeches, again, some of the wonderful selections, there might be some short words that can really help your remarks be spicy. Okay, yes, I think the last tool I want to give you, wait, here we go. Yeah, and I should tell you, just so you I'll send these as well. I have a list of consonant sounds and then a list of examples behind each one. So I'll give you this list. In one version of the class, we would go through the list, but I think getting you to your partner practice is more a priority. So I'll give you these afterwards, yeah? Along with the tongue twisters. Okay, but the other major tool I wanted to give you is, on occasion, you might decide to stretch out your long consonants or create long consonants. So your vowels are tools, either elongated or shortened. And then you can also try to emphasize or stretch out your consonants. Now, I will acknowledge that some of these examples work better than others, but let's give them a go to see if, actually, so that you can decide which ones you think might work or might be keepable. So just to walk you through the exercise, working from left to right, those three columns, on the left-hand side is the consonant, that capitalized it. And then in the middle column is an example of a word that might have that consonant in it. And you'll see there are obviously misspellings where I've repeated that consonant a couple of times to tell you that's the one you're emphasizing or trying to elongate. And then a sample sentence where you're using that word with the stretched out consonant. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to work our way down that most right-hand column, exaggerating or stretching out the consonants. And I see a chat here. Let me just make sure that's clear. Joy can. Okay. Yes. Okay. So let me. I'm keeping my eye on time. Yes. So let me have a thought about the consonant practice. So you feel like you got your money's worth, as it were. All right. But let's start with this sample, the right-hand column, and then actually we will circle back briefly to the consonant exploration, so you can kind of feel the dance of the individual consonants. Okay, but first we'll begin with this right-hand column. So the word is fantastic that we're emphasizing. The goat was fantastic. The next one is horrible. The stench was horrible. Next, we're emphasizing or stretching out the L in less. I couldn't care less. It might be tempting or more familiar to us to stretch out the vowel. So if you find yourself doing that, no worries. But if you can, really try to lean into the consonants. The next one, we're emphasizing marvelous. The place was absolutely marvelous. Next is we're emphasizing nowhere, the N in nowhere. She was nowhere to be seen. Next, actually this is sort of a tricky one, the NG in long. The journey was so long. Always find that one a little funnier, but maybe there's some word that you get some mileage out of that one. The next, we're emphasizing the R in real. I just want you to get real. Okay. Next, we're emphasizing the S in soft. The velvet was so soft. Next, another combination, we're emphasizing the SH in sharp. He's young, but he's sharp. Next, we're emphasizing the V in value. It all depends on the value. Next, we're emphasizing the W in wait. What? We still have to wait? Somehow that's unusual for me because my lips are starting to tremble. All right. Next is the Y in yearn. He used to yearn. So, nope, I did what I said we're not doing in this particular exercise. I leaned into the vowels, so I'll check that again for myself. Again, emphasizing the ya in yearn. He used to yearn for a change. Next, emphasizing the Z in zealous. She's pretty zealous in her approach. Next, actually the last two, the two different pronunciations of TH. So the th and thank you. And then the next one will be the in the next one. Okay, one by one. So first the TH in the thank. Thank you. I'll never forget it. And the final one, we're emphasizing the TH in that. That's the one. So these may be a little less successful or a little less familiar than elongating vowels, but there may be some mileage. You may discover some mileage in your remarks. Okay, didn't want to skip over these slides, so I will circle back. Okay, perfect. So then I think instead of doing the entire lists, because I would like you to have practice time with your partners and in front of the group. What we'll do, folks, is we'll say aloud or say silently if you would like to feel what it feels like to make the sounds. I know that's a funny thing to say, but you get your choice. So, sorry, again, to clarify, what we'll do is we'll speak the first 3 words in the list of examples. Again, that's our column on the right-hand side, the furthest over. So you get your speaker's choice. You can either say the words aloud, so you might say baby, best, buy, and we're not officially beginning yet. Or if you'd like to experience, as I said, the dance of articulating, you could also say. So whatever is most useful or interesting to you in this moment, yeah, speaker's choice. All right, but that said, we'll work our way through, and there are 2 whole slides of these examples. So I'm going to go back to that first one and make it a little bit larger. And I will scroll down as we get there. I just want to make sure that they're visible to you. And I know I'm talking a lot without asking questions. So if you have questions, if you can't see anything, please put it in the chat. But I wanted to kind of give it to you, and then we can discuss and then plan for our practice. Okay, so now we'll beginning with B, and then again working our way down the first 3 words in each of our examples. So baby, best, buy. Now C in English has a couple of different pronunciations. It has an S sound and a K sound. So in the S sound, center, cellar, cigarette. With the K sound, cake, come, cucumber. Moving down to D, day, dear, die. And actually, I just changed what I wanted to do. Let's actually do the first three, and then we'll do the last one in each section. And I know we're jumping back a little bit back and forth, but I realized earlier in our session, I told you that we needed to have some attention on enunciation at the end of words. And the examples with the sounds at the end of words are at the end of each list. Okay, so actually let's begin again. So if we were going back to B, baby, best, by, and then jumping all the way to our right with tub. Going back to our C sounds, center, cellar, cigarette, and then jumping to notice, then cake, come, cucumber, then jumping over to panic. All right, now we're in D. Day, dear, die, and then jumping to our last word there, ended. Fast, female, 5, then cuff, and then our G has 3 different sets of sounds. First, game, gap, get, and then jumping over to egg. Then general, gin, giant, then jumping all the way to manage. Then our final G sound, mirage, garage, beige, rouge. Okay, our 2 pronunciations of H, both pronouncing the H and then a silent H. Hair, help, history, inherit. Next, hour, honor, honest, Sarah. I should also say that H is also one of those sounds that, again, depending on someone's accent when speaking English, the H is either present or not present, yeah? Okay, now moving to J sounds, jam, Jane, jet, and just. To K, Kate, kind, kill, look. Jumping to L, late, let, live or live, and then jumping all the way to all. Going down to our next set of slides, M, make, men, mind, team. Napkin, never, night, sun. Paper, person, pick, crisp. Quality, question, quite, require. Unique, technique, antique, grotesque. To our R, rain, red, rise, and then car. Again, if you're in the accent that you have, you say the R's at the end of words. Oh, you might be Queen Elizabeth and say car, for example. So not all of us. R's are also R's at the end of words are also one of the sounds that are shift most depending on your accent. Anyway, just in case you're doing Queen Elizabeth at a party one of these days. Okay, S sounds, send, simple, song, jumping to release, cause, present, reason, jumping to was. Of course, present, we could also say, no, I said present, excuse me, present would be using the S sound. Okay, jumping to T, task, tell, time, going to rest. The V sound, vast, vain, vivid, active. W, wall, war, way, twist. And then our X is quite flexible. Exercise, exchange, expect, relax. Exam, exact, executive, exult. And then xenon, xerox, xenophobia, xylophone. And last but not least, our Z, zero, zoo, horizon, jazz. Excuse me. And then our final, pizza, Mozart, Nazi, and waltz. Excellent. So then I'm going to stop my share and pause to ask if there were any questions, any surprises. Oh, goodbye, Florence. Florence it's taken off. All right, Florence, we'll look out for the summary and the materials I'll send. Okay. For my folks who are still online, let me change my view so I can see all of you. That was a lot. Before we go into our partner work, any questions? Yeah, just any questions, observations. You're letting it all simmer and settle in.
This is good.
Okay.
This is kind of not related to diction, but if you,
Yep.
I know that a lot of news anchors that I've worked with, they always did their narration in the morning because they said their voice was more lush and throatier. Is there something to the way your voice changes over the day where you can hit a pitch in the morning and then you can't really hit it in the evening? Or, you know, there's that just organically after sleep, your voice has a certain sound, and then, you know, just like how we clear a lot of phlegm in the morning, but really, I, you know, I mean, I did a lot of narration recording, and I certainly heard a difference in the morning where people could hit a pitch, could hit a rich.
I haven't studied it particularly, Patty, but I would say yes. I don't know about anyone else on the meeting, but my voice is typically a little deeper in the morning. It may be because of relaxation, because it's been spending 6, 8, 9 hours relaxing. But I also find that I can't on the related, maybe on the other end of the spectrum, I can't typically access my higher range. So I know among, and I sing, I'm not predominantly a singer, but I know that singers prefer to schedule their auditions in the afternoon when they're kind of like athletes, when they've warmed up and their muscles have stretched into the day, whereas them hitting the highest of their highest note in the morning is less possible because that same rest that has made their deeper tones possible has made the higher tones maybe less accessible because the muscles aren't warmed up.
But in the same idea, though, people tend to mumble when they first wake up. You know, when you have a really early meeting and you're calling people on Zoom, and they're all like, "Well, you know," they're more likely to slur their words in the morning. And I don't know if there's some kind of muscular wake up thing that happens in the morning.
Tongue twist. I definitely, yes. The tongue twisters for some people, it's that caffeine or their shot of, you know, espresso or green tea. But yeah, it's their muscles. It's muscular, physical for sure. Yeah. I should also say what do I want to say? I want to say that enunciating for emphasis in this age of Zoom, the tool for enunciating will be most useful for emphasis, for play than for clarity, because we can control our volume on Zoom and the listener can control how turned up the microphone is. Like none of us are standing on a stage of 600 people or at in-person conferences where we need to make sure that the people at the back of the lecture hall or the hotel ballroom can hear us. So on Zoom, it'll really be about, I want to move you all. For example, by emphasizing the ooh and move, or I want to say this class is fabulous. And so then I'm being dramatic or putting an accent on it that way. I think in this age, that will definitely be more of the focus. But yes, any other thoughts? Because otherwise I'm about to send you off to practice. Yes, Colette.
I have one question. Can you hear me? I'm using a different computer where the microphone works, so I don't have my earphones in. This is like just reminded me the practice we were just doing, that I'm always amazed at actors that can completely put on an accent, and you know, sometimes you can't even tell. Like I once interviewed Alex O'Loughlin, who was, you know, star of Hawaii Five-0 here, and I didn't even know till I interviewed him that he was Australian. Like I thought his American accent in the show, I wasn't familiar with him before that show, and I thought his American accent was pretty perfect. And so when he started speaking with his Australian accent, it just blew me away. And I'm just wondering if certain people have that ear. Like if I see, say it was a British accent, if I see it phonetically on paper, I can pronounce it, but I can't hear it to pronounce it without that visual cue.
Okay, so here we go. And I love how you all are having the class that you want to have. So
sorry if this is
no. There's an alternate version of the class because I always prepare much more material than we can get to in an hour and a half. I actually have a mini lesson on doing a dialect. So if you all would like that mini lesson, and then you're going to do a dialect, I can give you that, and we'll consider that part of our enunciation class.
I know like in movies, they have a coach, you know, and I'm sure that's helpful, but I mean, plenty of just, you know, community theater actors put on an accent for just a show without a coach.
So I'll show you that screen. Okay, 4:58. We've still got enough time to practice. This is like our 10-minute dialect session. So give me one moment.
This is like the guy who plays House. He sounds like such an American, but then when you have him interviewed, he's got the total British accent.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Patty, I can see you. Can you give me a thumbs up? Are you seeing PowerPoint? Okay, great. So here's our quick and dirty. Learning a dialect and introduction. And I would want to call this a quick and dirty, since there could be whole courses in learning a dialect. Very briefly, a little vocabulary for linguists, also for voice and speech instructors. Dialect and accent, let's say for the general population, dialect and accent are used interchangeably, kind of like articulation, enunciation, diction, etc. But they're actually slightly different things. A dialect is a variety of language spoken in an area or by a group of people. So all of us speak a dialect of English called American English. And that's wherever we've come from, because we're in America, we're surrounded by Americans and others, but we're speaking more or less with the same set of sounds. And I don't have an exact percentage, but we're all using most of the same set of sounds. Then there's something called an accent. That's a subset of a dialect, and that's a way of pronouncing words associated with a region, socioeconomic background, and status. So for example, we saw this again, referencing the impeachment hearings. There are various people who presented from various parts of the country. They were all speaking with an American dialect, but there may have been regional differences, someone from New York versus someone from South Carolina, etc. So that said, again, if you continue to say dialect and accent, no worries. The basic components, and this gets to actors, I guess, or whether you're moving to a new place and you want to speak like the people there. In voice and speech, we say that the basic components of a dialect are the music of it, that is the rhythm and the pitch. Where does it rise? Where does it fall? Which sounds are stressed? How are they stressed? Then there's pace, and you'll usually notice differences from how you normally speak. So people may speak faster or slower than you speak. Often people, this is across the world, in urban areas tend to speak faster than people in more rural areas. Also, in some dialects, there are pauses and halts. Of course, in some, there are even particular sounds. Moving down the physicality, accents can be placed differently in the body. So there are some accents, I think I've talked about Fran Drescher and the Nanny. That particular accent is more nasal. It's more in the nose. I may have also mentioned I have relatives from Eastern North Carolina, and they typically have more nasal sound. In fact, the one word I can always say, y'all all right, and that's all in the nose. And then different dialects have different facial expressions and different gestures. I remember remnants from my high school French, people saying oof, oof, you know, the various things like that. And then there are sound substitutions, and that's, you know, the particular sounds, saying how you pronounce words that may be different. All right. Oh, hello, iPhone. I don't know who that is. All right. So then if we had 1,000,000 hours in this course, then we would all watch Queen Elizabeth deliver her coronavirus address. Oh, hi, Florence. Welcome back. And I would encourage you to do that. But it is 5:02, and I want to make sure you get some speaking time. So I guess I will do an instant poll. The choices are, would you like to practice your remarks, well, let's say for 5 whole minutes, and then anyone who would like to share with the group, share with the group? Or would you like to experiment with a dialect, and I show you Queen Elizabeth, and you then give the group your best Queen Elizabeth? So the choices are practicing some of your new enunciation skills, elongating vowels, elongating consonants. That's one option. And the other option is playing with a dialect, whether for fun or entertainment, or so that you can mimic people maybe in your presentation or your remarks with an example of Queen Elizabeth. So choice 1, enunciation. Choice 2, Queen Elizabeth. So anyone voting for, really? Okay. So those are my Queen Elizabeth people. Okay. Colleen votes for enunciation. Barry says 2. Zell votes for 1. Okay. So then what I'll do, we're split. Even though this is America, whatever. We'll do proportional representation. So then I will briefly show you Queen Elizabeth. And then I'll send you off. Then the Queen Elizabeth people, I guess you can just give us your greatest Queen Elizabeth after a couple minutes practice. Then my enunciation people, I would invite you to choose several sentences from your speech or your remarks, that is your text, and play with, we're not expecting a finished product, either play with elongating the vowels or elongating the consonants. Okay, so let me find Queen Elizabeth. Bear with me. Okay. Also cross my fingers that I can share the video with you. Optimize for video clip, share sound. That's not what I want. Save. Okay, let me do that again, folks. Gotta bring her up. So my folks who are doing enunciation for your remarks, if you want to, while I'm working on bringing Queen Elizabeth to the group, if you want to already grab a couple of words. Okay. Here we. Can I? Sorry, I don't have her in the right spot.
Come on, get in. Get in right now, get in.
I love hearing someone's talk to their cat.
That was me, sorry.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay. All right, I think I got her up. Thanks for your patience.
I'm speaking to you at what I know is an increasingly challenging time. At time of disruption in the life of our country. A disruption that has brought grief to some, financial difficulties to many, and enormous changes to the daily lives of us all.
Okay, could you all see and hear her? I wasn't done with her clip yet. You could not.
We could hear her, at least I could, not see her though.
You could hear her, but not see her. Okay. This happens every week. So what I'm doing instead is I'm going to YouTube. Okay. Great. Okay, now I've got the clip. So what I'm going to do instead is put her in the chat, because I don't know what's up with all that stuff. Okay. So I'm putting her in chat. So again, for my Queen Elizabeth people, and actually this is even better, because then my enunciation people won't be burdened by listening to the Queen. So my enunciation folks, again, your opportunity is to take a couple minutes, pluck a sentence or two from your remarks and play. We call this in theater open rehearsal, play with elongating your consonants or your vowels. For my Queen Elizabeth folks, you have copied and pasted that YouTube link with Queen Elizabeth and her remarks about the coronavirus. And you're going to give us a couple of sentences in your best Queen Elizabeth British accent. And there you are experimenting with the differences in how it feels physically to speak like her, what sounds are different, and we're all acknowledging that you might be doing a bad or less accurate British accent. But I don't believe it's the native accent of anyone in the group, so we're not making fun. But one of the ways that we begin to learn to speak like people who speak unlike ourselves, or the way we learned as children, was listening and imitating. So for us as performers, any accent we do that's not our own is going to sound not very accurate at the beginning, but we will have heard some differences. That will be interesting. And so to the recording, I'm just giving people a little bit more time to grab a sound or a physicality of her. Great. And this is incredibly short, but now I invite anyone who's either taken a listen or is taking a listen to Queen Elizabeth or did enunciation, want to share a little bit with us.
I'll do my enunciation.
Great. Welcome, Zell. Great to see you.
Good to see you. Okay. Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could, to where I bent in the undergrowth.
Great. And now, so that was I'm really observing this and I'm really going to practice it. Now, Zell, just a couple of phrases from that where you are dancing. Do you know what I mean? Where you're like free, it's in there, but you're being a little less careful and maybe you don't hit everyone, but
Okay.
You know it's in there because you practice it for weeks in another version of this and you've decided which ones you're going to keep. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So okay, great. So just give us a little ease of that.
Two roads diverged in a yellow wood, and sorry I could not travel both. And be one traveler long I stood, and looked down one as far as I could to where I bent in the undergrowth.
Nice. Yes. Great. Great, great, great. Yeah, that's important because we're kind of making sure that all of the phases of learning are in us. So the first one was like the first time we did it, and then the last one was like the 10th time, where you've got all the good stuff you want to keep. And yes, exactly, absolutely. Okay, let's hear from our other, I think we had at least one other enunciation speaker, and then we'll get to all the Queen Elizabeths. Colleen, were you another enunciator?
I don't think I understand the exercise exactly.
Okay.
I'm just supposed to drag out some of the consonants and some of the words.
Yeah, elongate some of the consonants or elongate some of the vowels. You're sort of playing with doing a version of the group exercises that we did. So if you had a sentence like, today I walked to the store, you might say, today I walked to the store. And you're just sort of playing. This might not even be anything we would keep, but you're playing with those elongations in case there might be one that you wanted to use.
Okay. Yeah, I'll just take a stab at one of the sentences then.
Awesome.
Anyway, that evening, he noticed the French windows had been forced from the outside, letting someone inside. The downside of the situation is that it appears to be an inside job.
Thank you. Yes. So definitely a first rehearsal, and then at some point you would decide if you wanted to keep any of those, for sure. But yes, thank you. And thank you for asking for clarity. Okay. Now I want to get some of these. Yes, Barry, for sure.
I can do this one also. You do it, I prefer to do this, not the speech.
Okay, great.
Right, thanks.
Give us, oh, okay, and Olivia as well. Okay.
Oh, now I lost my place. Okay.
No worries.
Sorry. The air changed when Hank Aaron walked into the room. Its occupants inevitably reacting in one of two polar opposite ways, depending on the setting. Total awestruck silence or spontaneous and unabashed applause. And it was that way again Friday upon the devastating news that Aaron had died at 86. The reactions came in grand, sweeping statements about his monumental impact on the game and larger American culture, and in hushed, halting, heartbroken words about his impact on the people who knew him.
Thank you. Thank you, Barry. And a couple of quick observations across the three enunciators we've heard so far. And I haven't forgotten you, my Queen Elizabeth people, is that Zell with his poem and Barry with a sort of dramatic scene setting had texts which seemed to particularly lend to some of those elongations. So some material is going to be richer for certain sorts of things than others. So that's definitely something you'd explore as a speaker. So Zell performing a poem, because that was, we might be talking about imagery to some degree, setting those images. He had some room there. Barry with words like polar opposite and awesome, also sort of scene setting. So to some degree, there can be material that's more or less conducive, and that would be something that we just explore as a speaker. And ideally, that's why we would, if we were doing prepared remarks, this is a sort of thing we might investigate during a session. It might be like, polar or awesome, for example. Do you know what I mean? That we're making some choices and we don't use every tool in every moment. Olivia.
And you can mix and match, right? The vowels.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. Yes.
consonants.
Yes.
I'll see what
Yes.
I can do with this. I'm just going to go with the beginning of my text.
Yes.
I had a farm in Africa at the foot of Ningon Hills. The equator runs through these highlands 100 miles to the north, and the farm lay at an altitude of over 6,000 feet. A bit of an exaggeration. I'm not sure how to apply it to this. It's a little.
And it's okay now because I'm also asking you to kind of snatch it out of the air and apply. So, Olivia, that would be one where you're like, okay, maybe 1,000 is the one I would keep, and the rest, interesting exercise. So it's okay. Right now, we're just sort of sampling, so we have the sense of that we know that it's a tool, whether or not it applies or whether or not we use it. Yeah.
It's helpful.
Do I have other enunciators before I move to my Queen Elizabeths? Thank you, enunciators. You're all in my lower left hand, so that's why I'm gesturing to that part. Yeah, Patty.
Oh, I wanted to switch. I wanted to switch to enunciation. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah, because with the kitchen stifling with heat and lunatic flies, I decided to crawl underneath our house and lie in the cool shadows, listening to the howling sound of plumbing. Was it God? Was it Father speaking from death? Or Uncle with his last shiny dime? I listened, ear pressed to a cold pipe, and heard a howl like the sea. I lay down until I was cold and then crawled back to the light, raising from one knee, then another, to dust off my pants and squint at the harsh light. I looked and saw the glare of a pie tin on a hot day. I knew sin was what you took and didn't give back. Boy,
Thank you.
I don't know what I would do with that.
Yeah, you were just playing with it, and
That
some
was
of it,
random.
some of it you would keep, and some of it you wouldn't. That last thing before I then move to my Queen Elizabeth people, who all happen to be on the other side of my screen, is that these different tools should feel good. So they're not only for your listener. I was talking about the dance of articulation, the dance of enunciation, but it's also like it should be a joy. It should be a joy. Now I get to speak these remarks. I get to, and then I'm gonna paint the picture, because it's all sort of going into painting the picture or delivering your message. So, and not that you're like, oh, I'm gonna use this trick and I'm gonna use this trick, but like, oh, I get to paint, I get to create images, I get to give them two roads diverged in a yellow wood, or I get to tell them about the conditions of the farm, or excuse me, about Hank Aaron, etc. So it's not only for your audience, it's also it's tasty. So you got the vibration, from the resonances, and you're breathing in, you're getting good oxygen and everything, but it's also tasty. It's also tasty. So that's the other gift of it. Okay, and I'm seeing someone's chat. Colette says she's also switching. Okay. All right, I want to give my queens. Okay, Colette, one moment before I get to you, let's give a little taste of our queens.
I listened to the Queen, but I don't think it helped.
Okay. Again, everyone doing the Queen gets permission to give us the worst British accent ever. You had 5 minutes to do it. We're not judging. We're enjoying you enjoying being the Queen for a little bit. So do I have any queens who want to just give us a few phrases of her? Yes. Okay. So I see Robin and then Chris. Great. So Robin, give us a little Queen.
All right, I just wrote down one thing that she said. I don't
Excellent.
know if I can do it, but I'll try. We draw comfort that even on the darkest nights, there is hope in the new dawn.
Yes.
That's as
Yes.
much as I
So
have.
you have her, so you have the shape of her vowels to draw comfort. And there was some word that ended in an R, but she doesn't pronounce the R in her accent, and you got that. You also got she's relatively still. Either that's generational or cultural.
Yes.
She's relatively
Does not
still.
speak very much with her mouth open. She speaks with her mouth
Yes.
open. Yes.
Absolutely. Yes.
Very right. She's barely alive, really.
Yes. Thank you, Queen Robin. Yes. Queen Chris, whenever you're ready.
Queen Elizabeth's gonna get a little deep.
Okay, that's no worries.
Every year, we herald the coming of Christmas by turning on the lights. And light does more than create a festive mood. Light brings hope.
Yes, thank you. Yes, again, you're feeling the differences on the shape, and also her stillness too kind of helps keep it right in there. Yes, very particular bearing. Did I have any other queens before we circle
Me.
back? Yes, Ben, Queen Ben, whenever you're ready.
This Christmas, we cannot turn on the lights. This year, we have to turn them off.
Thank you. Thank you, Queen Ben. Excellent. Yes, excellent. Yes, you all got a number of her sounds, and you also really got all captured her stillness, which is really particular, really particular. What was I gonna
Yes,
say?
Queen.
Yes, Queen, absolutely. Florence, you came off of, are you able to join us with your video on? And I just want to consult with you. If you can communicate with us, feel free to share. While you're figuring that out, I will loop back to Colette, who wanted to do enunciation.
Yeah, I'm glad I didn't do the queen after hearing all of you guys.
No, come
I
on.
don't
You would
get
have
it.
joined in the play. So you've
I
got the
don't get it.
enunciators, they're playing, they're exploring, and you've got the queens, they're also playing and exploring. No judgment.
Wait, did you guys memorize the lines from the speech, or were they written somewhere? I didn't see the written version.
I did a quick Google search for the speech.
Ah, okay.
I just found it.
Great.
I made up the, I remember her saying, you need to keep the light. We cannot turn the lights on, but I just added that last bit.
Excellent.
Oh my gosh, it took me half the time just to get through the ads before I even got to see the
Yes,
video.
thank you, you two. All right, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm going back to my other article. I'm going to try to just do the, yeah. Paris is a collective fantasy, from the booksellers along the Seine to the gray zinc rooftops of its creamstone buildings. For ages, the city has been the place to turn for lessons in l'art de vivre, the art of living, influencing fashion, philosophy, culture, art, and gastronomy around the world.
Thank you. Yes, and your colleagues were nodding their heads. I think we all really, I think some heads nodded when you said ages. We were like, oh yeah, that's a good one. You know, that's logical. That makes sense, etc. So yes, absolutely. So again, these sort of open rehearsal that we're doing now, where we would keep some percentage of that, and very briefly that's to my enunciators. Yeah, we keep some. The rest we're like, okay, not so much. For my queens, anytime you want to learn a British accent, just go for it, go for it, go for it. And then you could decide, you could learn a particular queen's speech. Then if you were performing on stage with that accent, or on screen, yes, you might have a voice and speech coach. I think I forget, was it Patty, did you ask, or was it Colette who asked about people who can perform dialects, forgive me, and accents? I forget which person mentioned it, but yes, on set, if you have to do one which is not your own, and the production has some funds. So I've experienced as a performer in theater, I would have usually a voice text and dialect coach. And then I shot a film recently where the people were supposed to be from Louisiana. And we also had a dialect coach who sent YouTube links, but then also coached me word by word through the lines that I had to say. I will say you all are really the people who did the Queen already have a great start, because it's one thing to have the dialect, but then to do that and be able to act too is like a lot. But you're already so good with your dialect that then if you had to then perform a character in the dialect, you've got it. But it can be a little bit like patting your head and rubbing your tummy, because you're trying to not say the R in far, and then you're trying to be like in love with the person, for example, in a film. Colette, you had a question.
Yeah, the Queen not only kept her body still, but her mouth didn't even move very much. Is that a characteristic of speaking a British accent, or is that just her?
Definitely not all British accents. If you watch Luther, or if you watch
Doctor Who.
Doctor Who, yes. No, people, it's not that British people lack expression. It just, I think particularly for her generationally, and as the Queen, I think she might be quite poised and quite careful. Yes, exactly. Yes. So Ben is doing the Queen's wave. I mean, even her wave, it's not like, when we're leaving Zoom, we're like wave like that. Even her wave is sort of much more compact. And so I think it's her.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's her. And I haven't watched any of the recent dramatizations of Princess Diana, but apparently so there are stylistic and generational, modes of expression and how public we are and open with our feelings. So I think that's literally stiff upper lip is what she's exhibiting. Any additional questions? I won't call them final questions, but any questions for the day? I'm gonna let it simmer and settle. Okay, so then what I'm going to do, I didn't want to take up class. I'll figure out how to schedule the 10-minute mini. Wait, not count myself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. So the sessions are gonna be about 10 minutes in length for our mini sessions. I'll have a thought. You don't necessarily need to, so that you have your assigned slot, so that Zell would know he's going at 5, Ben knows he's going at 4, etc. I'll also welcome you if it's just easier for you to log on to the call and then join me for the one-on-ones. The one-on-ones will not be recorded. So what we'll do is, if anyone is coming on the call between 4 and 5:30, there'll be this sort of general room, and then the one-on-ones will occur in a breakout room. And on Zoom, you can't record in the breakout room. If you really wanted our one-on-one to be in the main session, if anyone else happened to be on the call, I'd ask them to mute and go off camera, for privacy. So have a thought about that. And I'll put all of that in the email, and we'll figure it out. I've been playing with varying scheduling apps, so I'll try to figure out the most efficient way.
And Joy, you said you were going to send out the links to the previous classes?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. So I can even do that in advance of the final session, since the final session is the one-on-ones. And then the other thing I'll say is I'll give you, if other questions come up once the class is over, so, after next week, I'm going to give you like a 2-week window in which to contact me. Not like I'll never reply if you contact me after 2 weeks, but I anticipate that at least up to 2 weeks after the class, you're sort of newly paying attention. You have time to go back through the emails and the YouTubes, and you're like, well, what about, or what about, or what about? I definitely want to give you 2 weeks of pretty quick turnaround for any questions that come up, just kind of as you're letting things sink in and practicing outside of class. So I'll put that in the email too. Yes, come on.
You sent those apps for practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't had a chance to check them out yet, but I was just wondering, because I have so many apps already on my phone, so I really just want to download the ones that are going to be. But do you have a suggestion of one to start with, or is there?
Sure. So first, I'll also say it's 5:32. So anyone who has to go, feel free. I'm going to stay on the line to answer Colette's question and anyone else's. But bye, bye, Queen Robin. Happy Valentine's Day. Have a good one. So briefly, Colette, it depends on your focus. If speaking is really anxiety producing for you, then I would suggest the app. I think it's the Andrew Johnson one, and that's actually as much about anxiety alleviation or anxiety reduction as it is about speech. Beyond that, do you have an iPhone or a Samsung, an Android phone?
I have an iPhone, so I think there were 3 other options besides. I was also like wondering if any of them you could do in the car or if they're all interactive.
So I think it's Ummo, and that might be both Android and iOS. They're all good. So first of all, I hear you about app overload. I thought Ummo was pretty good. There's another one, Speakio.
Speakio and Orai, I think. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but
the great thing about all of them, and as you might imagine, as apps have been around longer, the capabilities have become more similar across them. You get to choose what your focus is. So you can upload your speech into the app or just speak it into the app and say, I want the app to observe how many times I say or like. And then that's what the app's listening for. Oh, cool. You could also tell the app that what you want to focus on is pace. And then the app is saying, by some sort of parameters that you've set up or the programmers have set up, you started to get a little, if pace is a concern where you think you tend to race, then you would say, the app said, well, you maintained a good rate of pace and actually had some variety. Or if you wanted to make sure that you had variety of pitch, then you could also tell the app that that's what it's listening for. So it's a little bit like the work that we've done with our partners in this group, where you can actually tell the app what to listen for, and that's what it'll listen for. And it'll have a little graph like, Joy, you said 4 times that time, or then the next time you said 2, etc. So you said it twice.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
I thought about a champagne toast, but I couldn't figure out how to arrange it. I said again, but it's been a pleasure. Anyone else have any other questions before I sign you out for the day? Nope.
Thank you. That was extremely helpful. So.
Oh, great. And now you've got a Queen Elizabeth in your pocket that you can pull out at parties.
And are you giving another class after this one, or a part 2, or just a different?
I'm not currently. I say again. Now I'm super conscious. I'm not currently, but I've got weeks and weeks worth of content, Patty. So I will have a thought about future offerings.
How to be a blast at parties with your accent.
That's right. Dialect in 5 minutes.
Just one thing. I was looking at the Little Theater of Alexandria classes, and there's actually a session. It's like one-time thing about accents in England. Okay, so you guys can go check it out. I think that would be interesting.
Absolutely. Urban versus rural. And it's amazing for such compared to the US, a small country, but the people can be mutually incomprehensible to each other. I mean, that happens in the States as well. But yes, a Yorkshire, a Northern English accent versus one from the south of England. Yeah, completely different. Anyway, for another time. All right, friends.
A quick question about the enunciation.
Yes.
I guess what was difficult for me to wrap my head around, it sounded to me like essentially we were elongating some of the sounds of the words in the sentences. Mm-hmm. And I guess I kind of got confused about whether or not, beginning, middle, end, was there something in particular, maybe TH sounds or long F sounds?
Okay,
can any word apply?
Yes. So, I apologize if that wasn't clear. It's essentially speaker's choice.
Okay.
Where you get to elongate. So you can elongate, and I think most of our samples had them at the beginning, like marvelous or a thank you.
Yeah.
Let's see, let's say if you were saying, I'd like to go home, you could say, I'd like to go home.
Okay.
You put it at the end as well. Yes. And great. Speaker's choice to it, or you could also elongate the O, and it could be, I'd like to go home. So, or you could do both. So it's speaker's choice. And sometimes the material will tell you, like the awesome in Barry's text, probably the awe and awesome might give us more mileage than the maybe elongating the M, awesome. He could do that, but naturally he seemed to find a little bit more sort of bang for his buck in elongating.
Yeah, I thought the other speakers sounded really good, so I think I'm going to practice that. And that's why I wanted to pick your brain about it.
Yes, speaker's choice. But I'll also say speaker's choice, and Colleen, that's also why we rehearse. So we could be like, today, we could literally be like, today I'll see if there are any words I just really want to emphasize using, drawing out the vowels or drawing out the consonants. Most of that stuff you wouldn't keep. It just so happened, well, we needed to clarify what we're going for a little bit more. But yeah, speaker's choice for sure.
Cool.
Is there an emphasis style when you do a narrative? You know, when I find that when people aren't animated enough, when I coach a public speaker and I say, you're telling a story, tell a story. Like once upon a time, blah, blah, blah. You know, there's kind of a cadence when people tell a story. Is that applying some of these rules when you tell a story?
It is, because you're really asking people to bring some color, some maybe speaking in a more exaggerated way than they might. Sometimes as actors, we can be told to act as though we're in a bad opera or bad soap opera, or act as though we're speaking speaking to little children. And it's the same sort of thing, Patty. We're really asking people to speak in a more animated way, because there's some goodies in there. There's some stuff that we want to keep, and we're not going to keep all of it, because then we're overacting, but we're going to keep some of it, and it's kind of opened up the possibilities a little bit more. So yes, absolutely.
But everybody can launch into, it's almost like there's a biological ability. Everybody can launch into a narrative, you know, and then this happens. Guess what happens next? Da, 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 da. You know, I mean, even people who don't act at all can launch into a story.
Sure. And it's also the voice that people have told stories. I mean, our loved ones have told, it's the way they've told stories to us. So we've absorbed years and years of that. So we've got it in there. Okay, friends. It is 5:39, and I want to respect the rest of your afternoons/evenings. Again, it's been a pleasure. Look out for notes. Look out for schedule for final session. All right. And happy Valentine's Day again.
Bye.
You too.
All right.
Happy
Bye, friends.
Thank you.
Have a great one.